What's up, everyone? So I often ask everyone, hey, what would you like to hear about? What topics are you, interested in having discussion? You know, um, and my big brother came up with one, and his thing was, just understanding the subconscious, right? And I'm really excited to speak about it. Obviously, it's always going to be from that clinical approach. Um, but it's everything that we have been speaking of, y'all. When I talk to you all about these cognitive distortions, when I talk to you about the view of self, remember we talked about that little girl or that little boy who, even though we present now as our current self, who is an adult, right? It's still that little boy, right? That little girl that kind of manages that which we may do, or our thoughts, right? The cognitive distortions, they may manage a lot of our thoughts. So first off, I want to say thank you to each of you for being back here. Um, I can't say how much I appreciate all of you, new subscribers, people that have been rocking with me since I even started dropping videos. I really do greatly appreciate you. So that subconscious, right? Like I said, it's going to tie all into everything we've been talking about, right? I'll tell you what it can have an effect on first. It affects our feelings. It affects our emotions. It affects our view of self. It affects our view of the world. It affects how we view others, right? What can cause this, right? A lot of different things. Our experiences, y'all. Everything that has shaped us. Everything that we have been exposed to, right? Now, we all have experiences that were not so pleasurable, experiences that cause disruption and a disturbance in just our day-to-day routine. We've all experienced that. But what happens not when we're in our conscious? Our conscious is what allows us, to focus. We're at work, we're getting stuff done, we're, typing things up, doing whatever you do. And then all of a sudden the mind goes somewhere else. You like, damn, where did that thought even come from? Hmm. Where did that flashback come from? Where did that memory come from? It's your subconscious. And when all of these experiences that cause such disruption in our lives, such a great disturbance goes unnoticed, you may try suppressing, right? Especially if you were brought up in an environment that did not support your overall emotional well-being, right? That did not support your overall wellness, right? Those things were left unresolved. So it doesn't take much for that subconscious to throw out intrusive thoughts, right? Negative view of self, cognitive distortions, these false narratives, because it's sitting here the whole time. It's almost like, say you get in a vehicle, right? And you driving, right? You driving the vehicle, you listen to some music, you vibing, right? You feeling this trip, you might be looking around at the scenery, whatever, landscape, right? And at first you're really focused on the music. The lyrics say something that causes the subconscious, almost as if it was a person sitting over there, to come over, and it's loud in your ear. It's loud in the mind. The music seems so far away, but this subconscious now is trying to now, kind of battle with your conscious. You'll find yourself arriving places where you're like, how the hell did I even get here? I wasn't even aware of my last 3 or 4 turns, right? Some people will say, it's a lot of it, scientifically speaking, can be based off of that muscle memory. But additionally, for that moment, you have dissociated. You have gone into your subconscious. We all do it, y'all. Everyone dissociates. No matter what somebody has told you, no matter the stigma one, may attach to it, we all dissociate. So this subconscious, right? It is what holds our fears. It is what holds all of this maybe self-doubt, all of these things, all these experiences, and sometimes we can't even be present because the subconscious, no different than like when we in that car and we know physically it's just you driving. It seems like somebody's over there just in the mind. You no longer are really paying attention to where you're going. You're just going about your way. You no longer vibing to your music. You're not even noticing the trees, the scenery anymore because that subconscious is so loud. So then you may hear talk of people having PTSD. Yeah. Their subconscious constantly battles with what is. The scary thing about the subconscious, it can be intrusive. Intrusive in its simplest terms, meaning it's nothing that you are consciously controlling. It is always there. It's just you really never know what may happen, if anything, that causes it to come forward. And it's like, bam, I'm here. Nightmares, all of those things, the subconscious. And I'm going to put this, of course, you're here for the premiere, right? So that way, any questions someone may have after just hearing this overview, I would love to engage with y'all, right? I enjoy that. I enjoy the conversation. I enjoy the various perspectives. So I do look forward to that part of it. Now, what happens if this subconscious begins to say, no longer am I just going to be loud in your ear. I'm going to slide your ass out the way and I'm going to take over the wheel. It can happen, y'all. It can happen where someone's subconscious has become so overwhelming that it begins to manage every facet of their life. As painful as it may be, a lot of individuals that I do treat, I've been trained in EMDR. That's EMDR, and some of you may have heard of it before, but it's so many facets of EMDR, right? So because I'm at a crisis stabilization unit, EMDR in its totality, in its entirety, right? Which is eye movement, okay? Desensitization, reprocessing, right? It requires more on an outpatient level because you're having to follow somebody and do this over a period of months and years, okay? So let me just break down briefly what that means. That eye movement, it means that you will be moving your eyes a certain way, back and forth at a certain speed when we do this skill through bilateral stimulation. So it's been proven, and if you ever want to read about it, EMDR actually taps in almost to like the same as like a REM sleep, right? that subconscious, and it pulls all of that back forward. And we begin to do the bilateral stimulation. And before you know it, I'm not going to go into detail, but I'm just trying to give you an understanding of EMDR. It desensitizes, does not erase the traumatic event. You know what happens. It's not going to erase your memory, no. But it desensitizes you to all of the emotions, all of the negative feelings, whether it be emotionally, physically, okay? It desensitizes you to that. And so when you search, you'll think of that event, excuse me, and you'll be like, man, I can't even find that emotion I used to have. I know it happened, right? But I'm not having the same response. It's a pretty cool thing to see happen. Of course, I always have to make sure that someone is appropriate for this type of skill and technique, as it is intense and it can be life-changing. Can you imagine your worst trauma, your worst fears, you becoming desensitized to them? For anybody that may not, really understand what I say when I'm, what I mean when I say desensitized, I'll give you an example. When I first started working at the CSU, Crisis Stabilization Unit, years ago, and I would have to ask people about suicidal thoughts, anything like that, right? I can remember being uncomfortable, being like, oh my gosh, like, what if they tell me they are? What if da da da? I mean, really, And over time, it was matter of fact. I still care, genuinely. I'm always empathetic. But I had done it so many times that it no longer had the same effect on me. And so now today, I can ask someone about something such as that, even with details. And it sounds no different. It's almost like on the same scale as if I was to say, hey, what you wear to work today? That is desensitization. So that's EMDR in an easier, way to understand. The techniques that fall under that are EMD. That means where we do everything except reprocess, right? Then you have blink flash technique. That is when somebody's distress has gotten here and I need to contain it, help them go into a safe space by way of bilateral stimulation. So then you may question like, okay, you keep talking about this bilateral stimulation. That means that I will be asking questions. So you're having to listen. The brain is having to process. So you're talking, listening. You may be doing the buzzers, like we have little buzzies, with your hands. So we're using sensory items. You're moving your eyes. We're using all of your senses at the same time. And science has proven that by way of bilateral stimulation, it taxes the brain. And so when we revisit this container that you have made that holds all of these distressing feelings, and I say, okay, if I was to say, hey, think about that container and all these stressful emotions, after we've gone through all of this technique and blink flash technique, which really only takes about 20 minutes, y'all. Typically, the person can't even find it. Now, I'm going to go back to subconscious. Blink flash is a quick fix. Like if you get so dysregulated, right? Panic attack, all of these things, and I get you back to a state where you can focus. And I say, okay, let's bring this stress down. It's a way to just help you plummet right back down to your baseline in a state of calmness, right? That's what it's there for. But what it does is it pushes it so far back in the subconscious that it's hard for you to tap into it. So I use blank flash when someone is dysregulated, which we all know can also affect you your health, right? The nervous system. And so yeah, it's a way that I help people just plummet back down, where they're not as escalated anymore. But it's not to be a permanent, fix in this thing. Desensitization is what can bring permanence. So I'm really excited that y'all did stop by just to hear this brief discussion. I'm grateful that my brother, did offer a topic. I appreciate you so much, big brother. And I really hope that, you may have learned something different today. You may have learned something new. It may be something that you're dealing with or you have dealt with, and you're like, oh my gosh, I've never heard of EMDR. I'm going to check it out. And you may go and look for EMDR trained certified therapists. It's not that many, but yeah, can be quite beneficial. So as always, be gentle with yourselves. We're all doing this thing called life for the very first time. The same kindness that you so graciously extend to others, give it back to yourself. Love yourself, right? That's what we have to do. We all have to do it. We all have moments where we may not exercise that. But I encourage you to be more intentional with recognizing that. Blessings to y'all always. Bye.